When my fiancé and I first moved into Maplewood Estates, I thought we had finally found the slice of peace we'd been craving. The houses were lined up like something out of a suburban magazine. Freshly cut lawns, kids riding bikes, golden retrievers chasing tennis balls across driveways. It was supposed to be perfect. We worked hard for this. I gave up my city apartment, my late-night lifestyle, and even switched jobs so we could have this dream. But almost immediately, I realized Maplewood Estates wasn't the dream. It was a gilded cage, run by people who thought they were kings and queens simply because they chaired the HOA board. Our house was cozy, modern, and felt like it belonged to us. The problem? It sat right across from her. Mrs. Caldwell. If Satan had a favorite realtor/queen bee suburban mom, it would be her. She was the HOA president, self-declared gatekeeper of community standards, and the type of person who smiled sweetly to your face before drafting a complaint letter the second you closed the door. At first, I tried to play nice. I baked cookies, introduced myself, even complimented her roses. She smiled, thanked me, then handed me a typed-out HOA welcome packet, filled with more rules than my old college dorm. No fences higher than 3 feet, no outdoor furniture that wasn't earth tone, no cars parked in the street overnight, no trash cans visible for more than 10 minutes on pickup day, no flags except the American one, approved sizes only. I laughed nervously at first, thinking it was overkill, but I didn't realize just how deep this madness went. The first strike came when I planted lavender in my front yard. Lavender. Soft purple. Fragrant. Harmless lavender. Within 24 hours, I got an official letter in the mail. Unauthorized flora. Non-compliant with approved landscaping palette. My jaw dropped. I thought it was a joke, but then I saw her across the street, arms crossed, sunglasses perched on her nose like a villain in a soap opera, smirking as I crumpled the letter. My fiancé, Mark, told me to let it go. "It's just flowers," he said. "We'll move them." But it wasn't just flowers. It was a warning shot. Days later, I caught her snapping photos of our trash cans because Mark had pulled them out the night before collection instead of the morning of. Another letter. Then, a week later, one of her minions from the HOA board stopped me as I was unloading groceries and said, "The board noticed your curtains don't align with the community-neutral palette curtains." In my own house. It was insane, but I gritted my teeth and tried to keep my head down. And then the betrayal came, from the one person I never expected. Mark. At first I didn't see it. I thought he was just being diplomatic, trying to smooth things over. He told me to play along with the HOA rules. He started mowing the lawn obsessively, moving furniture around, even painting over the mailbox because it wasn't the right shade of black. I thought he was just trying to keep the peace. But then I noticed how often he was helping out across the street, fixing Mrs. Caldwell's fence, carrying in her groceries, even joining her little HOA, community improvement meetings. At first, I brushed it off. He's just neighborly, I told myself. But then one night, I caught the way she touched his arm, the way she leaned too close when they laughed, the way he didn't pull back. My stomach twisted into knots. Was I paranoid? Was I just stressed by all the HOA nonsense? I wanted to believe that. I tried to believe that. Until one night, I came home early from a work trip. I parked 2 streets over, deciding to surprise Mark with dinner. As I walked up, I froze. My living room lights were on. Through the open blinds, I saw them. Mark and Mrs. Caldwell, sitting on my couch, drinking wine, laughing like they'd known each other their whole lives. Her hand was on his knee. I don't even remember how long I stood there. My ears rang, my chest felt hollow, and I thought I might throw up. I wanted to burst in, to scream, but instead, I walked away. I sat in my car, hands shaking on the steering wheel, and realized my perfect little life was unraveling right in front of me. The next day, Mark acted normal. Too normal. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just witnessed the betrayal that ripped my world apart. But I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because something in me snapped that night. And instead of crying, instead of begging, instead of confronting them like a broken victim, I decided I was going to play their game. And when I played, I would win. I didn't sleep that night. I laid awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of every single lie pressing against my chest. Mark was next to me, breathing deeply, peacefully, like he hadn't just ripped out my heart. Do you know that feeling when your reality splits in two? On the outside, I was still his fiancé, still Mrs. Keep the peace, still the woman who baked cookies for the neighbors. But on the inside, I was a hurricane. I was fury wrapped in silence. The next morning I smiled at him. I made him coffee. I even kissed his cheek before he left for work. But in my head, I was already sharpening knives. Not literal knives, no. Something sharper. Something cleaner. I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to destroy him. And her. The thing about HOA queens like Mrs. Caldwell, they thrive on control. They feed on obedience, on watching everyone squirm under their rules. And Mark, weak, spineless Mark, he was the perfect little puppet. But me? Number. I'd been underestimated my whole damn life. The first step was patience. I pretended like nothing was wrong. For weeks, I let him go to those HOA meetings. I let him help her with her yard, her car, her projects. I even waved at her across the street, smiling like the oblivious little fiancé she thought I was. All the while, I was digging. I started small. HOA records are technically public to homeowners. So I requested copies, meeting minutes, financial reports, maintenance expenses. And when those documents landed in my mailbox, I nearly laughed out loud. Mrs. Caldwell wasn't just bossy, she was dirty. Thousands of dollars of landscaping fees that didn't line up with receipts. Maintenance payments to contractors who didn't even exist. HOA dues funneling into accounts under her maiden name. The woman who fined me for planting lavender was stealing from every single neighbor in Maplewood Estates, but I didn't stop there. No. I started recording. Every time Mark came home late from a meeting, I wrote it down. Every time I saw her touch his arm, every smirk she threw me from across the street, I logged it. I downloaded a cheap nanny cam and disguised it in a fake potted plant near the window. And sure enough, proof. Her hand on his thigh, his laugh, low and guilty. Her whisper. She'll never know. Oh, but I did know. And soon, so would everyone else. The hardest part, pretending to still love him. Pretending not to vomit when he kissed me goodnight. Pretending not to scream when he came home smelling faintly of her perfume. But every time I wanted to break, I reminded myself, patience. Power doesn't come from rage, it comes from precision. And then fate handed me a gift. The annual HOA Summer Gala, the most pompous, overblown event of the year. A night of speeches, overpriced wine, and self-congratulation. Mrs. Caldwell always made it her stage, her crown jewel moment. And Mark? He was helping her plan it. Of course he was. I knew right then. This would be my battlefield. For weeks, I prepared. I compiled every financial inconsistency, every recording, every photo. I printed receipts, highlighted discrepancies, even made anonymous calls to a few disgruntled neighbors who'd also been bullied by her rules. The more I dug, the darker it got. She wasn't just a control freak, she was embezzling tens of thousands of dollars. And Mark? He was too stupid or too infatuated to even realize he was her pawn. The night of the gala arrived. I wore a red dress, not the approved neutral palette. Red like war, red like blood, red like the fire burning inside me. When I walked into that decorated country club hall, heads turned. I could feel their eyes on me, whispering. Even Mrs. Caldwell's smug smile faltered for a second. And Mark, he looked at me like he didn't even recognize me. Good. He didn't. Not anymore. The speeches began. The board members droned on about community improvements, budgets, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, Mrs. Caldwell took the stage. She was radiant in her pearl necklace, her voice dripping with superiority as she bragged about responsible management and community integrity. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I raised my hand. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough that the microphone picked it up. The room fell silent. All eyes turned. Mark's face drained of color. Mrs. Caldwell froze, her smile twitching. "Yes," she said, voice tight. I stood. My heels clicked against the polished floor as I walked toward the front, every step steady, every heartbeat a drum of vengeance. "I couldn't help but notice some discrepancies in the financial reports," I said. And then, like a magician pulling scarves from a hat, I laid them out. Copies of receipts, bank transfers, phantom contractors, thousands of dollars, missing, unaccounted for. The crowd murmured. Faces turned toward her, suspicious, confused. She tried to cut me off, her voice rising, but I wasn't finished. "And that's not all," I said, pulling out a small USB stick, because when you're stealing from your neighbors, it's bad enough, but when you're also destroying marriages in the process. I clicked the remote, the screen behind her flickered, and there it was, grainy footage from my nanny cam. Her, leaning into my fiancé, her hand on his thigh, his guilty smile, her voice, clear as day. "She'll never know." Gasps echoed through the room. Someone dropped a glass. Mark surged to his feet, stammering, but I didn't even look at him. My eyes stayed locked on her, watching the blood drain from her face. "Turns out," I said, voice steady. "I knew. And now everyone else does too." Silence, heavy, suffocating, until finally a neighbor in the back shouted, "She's been robbing us blind." Another voice. I knew something was off. The room erupted, anger boiling over, accusations flying. And Mrs. Caldwell, she stood there, trembling, her perfect suburban empire crumbling in real time. I didn't stay for the rest. I didn't need to. My work was done. I walked out of that hall, head high, my heels sharp against the pavement. Behind me, chaos reigned. Mark chased after me, calling my name, begging, but I didn't turn around. Not once. Because in that moment I wasn't his fiancé anymore. I wasn't her victim. I was something else. Something stronger. And for the first time since moving into Maplewood Estates, I finally felt free. Mark followed me into the parking lot that night, his footsteps fast and desperate behind me. "Wait, please, just wait." His voice cracked like he hadn't rehearsed what to say. For the first time in years, he didn't sound confident. He sounded pathetic. I kept walking, the night air cool against my skin, the echoes of shocked whispers still spilling from the gala hall. His hand brushed my arm, but I jerked away. "Don't," I hissed, turning to face him. His face was pale, his tie crooked, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "It wasn't what it looked like," he stammered, the same tired lie men have been telling women since the beginning of time. "Wasn't what it looked like?" I spat. You were sleeping with her, Mark. The Queen of Maplewood, the same woman who fined me for lavender bushes, the same woman who humiliated me every chance she got. You let her put her claws into you, and you didn't even have the spine to admit it. He reached for me again, but I stepped back. I didn't know what to do, he whispered. She had power. She threatened me. Stop. My voice was ice. You didn't cheat on me because you were threatened. You cheated because you wanted to, because it was easy, because it fed your ego. Don't you dare insult me by pretending it was anything else. For a moment, silence hung between us, heavy as stone. His face twisted with something. Shame, anger, maybe both. But I didn't care anymore. Something inside me had shifted. The woman who once begged for his attention, who smoothed over arguments, who second-guessed every lavender plant. She was gone. I left him standing there in the dark. The days that followed were a storm. News of Mrs. Caldwell's downfall spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. People who once whispered about her in private now shouted in public. She was removed from the HOA board within a week, her accounts frozen, her home under investigation for fraud. I'd see her sometimes, peeking out from behind her curtains, her once perfect hair unkempt, her once confident stride replaced with a nervous shuffle. The Queen had fallen, and she knew who pushed her. Mark tried, of course. He called, he texted, he left notes on my car. Long, rambling apologies about how he lost his way, how he still loved me, how we could fix this. Each message was more desperate than the last, the words of a man watching his safety net unravel. But I was done being his net. The night I packed my bags, I moved slowly, deliberately. Every shirt folded, every book stacked. When I picked up the photo of us on vacation, him with his arms slung around me smiling like a fool, I didn't feel sadness. I felt clarity. I slipped it into the trash without hesitation. When he came home that evening, the look on his face was almost comical. He stared at the half-empty apartment, like he couldn't process what he was seeing. You're leaving? His voice cracked. I already left, I said simply, zipping my suitcase. He reached for me then, not with anger, but with desperation, the kind that dripped from every pore. Don't go. Please. I'll do anything. I'll cut her off. I'll resign from the board. You don't get it, I interrupted. This isn't about her anymore. This is about you, about the way you let someone else run our lives, about the way you let me feel small in my own home, about the way you broke every ounce of trust I gave you. Even if she disappeared tomorrow, we'd still be broken, and I refuse to live broken anymore. He sank into a chair, his face in his hands, and for a fleeting second, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered the perfume on his clothes, the smirk on her face, the way he dismissed me when I questioned him. Pity evaporated. I wheeled my suitcase to the door. Where will you go? He asked, his voice muffled, hollow. Anywhere but here, I said, and I meant it. I left him sitting in that silence, in the wreckage of his own making. Moving out of Maplewood Estates was like shedding a skin. The neighbors whispered, of course, small-town gossip doesn't die overnight. But it didn't bother me anymore. If anything, the whispers were fuel. I'd exposed the Queen, dismantled the lie, and walked away with my head high. Let them talk. I wasn't theirs to control anymore. I found a small apartment in the city, nothing fancy, nothing like the curated perfection of Maplewood. The walls weren't painted HOA-approved beige. The neighbors didn't care what color curtains I hung. No one knocked on my door to measure my grass. For the first time in years, I could breathe. And in that breathing space, I found something unexpected. myself. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I signed up for yoga classes, joined a book club, even adopted a scrappy little rescue dog who chewed on the furniture but looked at me like I was his whole world. The emptiness I feared without Mark? It wasn't emptiness at all. It was freedom. Mark tried one last time, months later. He showed up at my door, thinner, tired, his eyes hollow. Mrs. Caldwell was facing charges. The HOA was under restructuring, and he was nothing, just a man who'd lost the woman who held his life together. I just wanted to say, "I'm sorry," he said softly, standing in my doorway like a shadow of the man I used to know. I looked at him for a long moment. Once, those words might have shattered me. Once, I might have believed him, taken him back, patched up the cracks, with hope. But not anymore. "I believe you," I said finally. "I believe you're sorry. But sorry doesn't undo what you did. Sorry doesn't erase the nights you lied to my face. Sorry doesn't rebuild the trust you burned to ashes." He swallowed, his throat bobbing. "So that's it?" "That's it," I said, closing the door gently but firmly. As the lock clicked into place, I felt something lift off me. Not just him, not just her, not just the HOA and its suffocating rules. All of it. The doubt, the shame, the smallness I'd carried. I let it go with that door. The woman who moved into Maplewood Estates was quiet, eager to please, desperate for approval. The woman who left was none of those things. She was scarred, yes, but she was stronger, and she was free. Sometimes, late at night, I think back to that lavender plant, the one that started it all. Back then, it was just a bush with purple blooms, an innocent rebellion. And now, I see it for what it was, a symbol, proof that I was never meant to blend into their beige boxes, proof that I was meant to bloom, even if it made someone else uncomfortable. And bloom, I did, because, in the end, Mrs. Caldwell lost her crown, Mark lost his anchor, and I gained myself. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.